You know, I've been an observer of human nature my whole life. It's just one of those things I do. And one thing that has always amazed me is how the vast majority of human beings seemingly would prefer the certainty of their shitty circumstances than risk going for their dreams. For that matter, most people don't even want to think about their dreams so they don't have to face the risk of never achieving them. And here's the cruelest part. No matter how much you avoid throwing your all into going after your dreams or even identifying them, there's a part of you that will always know you didn't even try. Now, fortunately, there is a way out of this self-imposed hell. Human beings are hardwired to avoid uncertainty for a very simple but incredibly powerful reason, and it's one word: survival. Back in the hunter-gatherer days, uncertainty usually meant an untimely death, either as the main course of some fierce predator or at the hands of an enemy who, in all fairness, were probably working out their own survival issues. The survival instinct is still the most powerful motivator of human behavior in general. Yet, ironically, to truly have any chance of thriving instead of, well, just surviving, it requires one to consciously and willingly go against that inborn instinct, to press forward through those mostly irrational fears into the abyss of not knowing for a chance to come out the other side as a human being who has chosen to live life fully rather than sit desperately quiescent on the sidelines. Certainty is merely a mental construct. When we talk about being certain, it simply means our perception of a situation or circumstance appears to be predictable. And while it's true we do have influence over predictability from a purely statistical standpoint, the fact remains that nothing in reality is certain, except for one thing: our power to choose. Our free will to make choices is what separates us from the stimulus response automatic Darwinian behavior that effectively controls the rest of the animal kingdom. It is through this infinite power of choice alone that allows each and every one of us to transcend our primal wiring and to live lives that others are afraid to even envision. Now, I'm a veteran of jumping into the abyss of not knowing what's next more than once. And I continue to do this because, well, frankly, the pain of being aware of not living fully greatly exceeds any misery of uncertainty I may have. I can honestly say that every time I have done this, my circumstances and experience of life have improved tremendously, most often in ways that were not even on my radar. My forays into the unknown ended up becoming doorways into possibilities I had never even considered before. Now, to be honest, until recently, I thought I had a personality defect for making these big leaps when so many others around me just went about their lives quietly and apparently contently, and with predictably unremarkable outcomes. Then I started reading the book, The Way of the Superior Man, by David Gilda. In it, he talks about men who are willing to live on the edge of their fear, never allowing themselves to shirk back into their comfort zone. Here's one of my favorite passages from that book, and I quote, "And a fearful man who still leans into his fear, living at his edge and putting his gift out from there, is more trustworthy and more inspirational than a fearful man who hangs back in the comfort zone, unwilling to even experience his fear on a day-to-day level. A free man is free to acknowledge his fears without hiding them or hiding from them. Live with your lips pressed against your fears, neither pulling back nor aggressively violating them." He also talks about men who pursue their mission and purpose passionately, only to eventually chuck it all to go into their next period of not knowing until clarity once again emerges. Each of these cycles ideally brings us closer to our true sense of purpose and mission. I have to tell you, when I first read this, my jaw dropped because it was like reading about my own life. For the first time, I now had a context for my otherwise inexplicable behavior that has always been driven by this need, this hunger to live life fully, to transcend my fears and dissolve the invisible chains of uncertainty that strove mightily to imprison me. Now, no matter what your current circumstances, you have the power of choice. And here are the ones I recommend for you to consider if you want a life fully lived. First and foremost, acknowledge your fears. Awareness of your fears, no matter how uncomfortable, is the first step. Being fully present to your fears, which means not using distraction to avoid them, is a discipline anyone can learn. Then dare to dream authentically. Your dreams may be big or small. It really doesn't matter. What does matter is to be authentic in identifying what yours are, no one else's. Write them down with the unrestrained passion and fury of your being, and with the full recognition that you risk never achieving them. Do what scares you the most first. Now, this is one that really impacts me. Make a habit of starting your day by tackling the one thing you dread the most, but could have the biggest impact to achieving your dreams. When you do this, the rest of your day will seem like a walk in the park. Trust me, I know on this one. Then be willing to let go. Birds would never fly if they stayed within the safety of their nests. It's your life. Figure out what it means for you to fly, then do it, and screw whatever anyone else thinks about it. Finally, and perhaps most importantly, persist. Life will inevitably throw you setbacks, often time and time again. Each setback is an invitation. To your primal self, it's an invitation to, back off lest you end up disappointed or worse. To your true self, it is an invitation to learn, strengthen your resolve, and enjoy fully the process of this adventure. Now, at this juncture, you might be asking yourself, if I do these 5 things, will I achieve my dreams? If so, I'm afraid you have missed the point entirely. Go back and review them again. Look, you have a choice. You've always had a choice. You can choose to ignore your possibilities and live a life of, quiet desperation. Or you can choose to risk the uncertainty, the abyss of the unknown as a way of life, as a way of the warrior. One where facing your fears head-on unwaveringly brings you the moment-by-moment bliss of living full out, regardless of outcome.
Thank you for joining us for another episode of Extraordinary Intimacy with Michael J. Russell. For all speaking, media interviews, and workshop inquiries, go to michaelrusselllive.com. For private intimacy coaching, send an email to coaching@michaelrusselllive.com.